Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to give some recommendations on some fantasy duologies that I've read. I know a lot of us love series, but sometimes you just want like a standalone or like a quick 2-book series to get through. So those are the duologies, and I've read quite a few in the past year or two, and I just kind of wanted to go through some that I enjoyed that I think also span a spectrum of different tastes. So I'm gonna go in order of my least favorite to favorite of these 8, and I'm gonna give you the Goodreads ratings along the way as well, just so that you have an idea of where the rest of the world lands on these. Some of mine are on par with that, some of them aren't. There are a few that I've ranked higher than what Goodreads would have, but it is what it is. So without further ado, we're going to start with number 8. And number 8 is The Ravens duology by Cass Morgan and Danielle Page. So we have The Ravens and the Monarchs. This was rated 3.66 and this was rated 3.69 on Goodreads as of yesterday when I found these ratings. The overall gist of this duology is that we have a witch coven that is also a sorority at a university in Georgia, and we follow our two main characters, Scarlett and Vivi. We go back and forth between their point of views in both books. And it's just Scarlett trying to be the leader that she wants to be and like make her family proud because she's like a legacy for this sorority. And then Vivian, who is just new to witchcraft and everything. She didn't really even know she was magical because her mother's been keeping secrets from her for years. That is what we have going on in this book. And then there is like a deeper, darker side to this sorority that we do uncover a little bit more about. And there's a mystery in this that does tie in to a mystery in this. But the overall gist of it is sorority sisters that are also witches. So it was a very fun, like quick, easy YA read. There is a little bit of a love interest in this for both of our main characters, separate love interests for both of our main characters, and that is a little bit of a predictable storyline, but at the same time, I think it was nice to throw that in there to get a little bit away from like the darker side of the witchiness that happened in these books. So very much enjoyed this, more than I was expecting to. This I bought on a whim, and I did enjoy it, so I got this one as well. So that was number 8. Number 7 is The Shadows Between Us duology. We have The Shadows Between Us and The Darkness Within Us. This book follows Alessandra, and this book follows Chrysantha. They're sisters. In The Shadows Between Us, we follow Alessandra as she tries to woo the Shadow King in an effort to marry him and then kill him to take over his kingdom. And then we follow her sister Chrysantha in the second book, and she is dealing with a marriage that she had from the first book, and we learn a little bit more about why she agreed to that marriage and what she really wanted out of it, is the best way to describe that. These are both semi-spicy, really quick, fun reads if you like a girl that is a little devious, I'd say. The first line of this book is what made me want to buy them, and it is like, they never found the body of the first boy I ever loved, and they never will. That's the first line of this book. I saw that on like Instagram or something one day, and I immediately bought this, then found out that this one was coming out just a little bit after they redid this one with the special editions. So beautiful books, fun stories. This was a 3.83 and this is a 3.92. Next up we have Mary E. Pearson's Dance of Thieves duology. This is a very popular duology, I think, with people getting back into reading. You can read the Remnant Chronicles before this. I didn't. I don't plan on it, but I didn't really feel like I didn't understand what was going on because of that. We go back and forth between Kazi and Jace's point of view in this. Those are our two main characters. Kazi is our FMC, Jace is our MMC, and Kazi is part of the Queen's Guard, and she is sent to Jace's part of the kingdom in search of this person that did the queen wrong, and she's trying to find them to bring them back to be brought to justice. And Jace is part of the kingdom, technically is ruled by a king, but his family has taken over and everyone kind of pays the dues to them, to which they send some of it to the kingdom and everything. So they kind of run this a little a la mafia style. And there's a little bit of like a dark underbelly going on in this book that both of them kind of uncover together, and you learn a little bit more about the kings of the land and then the queen, because there are two different kings. One is married to the queen, one is not. So that was never really clear to me on how that exactly worked, but there are two different parts of the kingdom here. So there's a little bit of a fight over who actually owns that land, which king, or Jace and his family. So this was like a really cat and mouse kind of situation, I'd say, for the two main characters. In this one, there's a lot more interaction between them because they get stuck in a situation where they have to rely on each other. After she kind of confronts him, they both get stuck in a sticky situation. And then this one is a little bit of that adventure as well, but it's definitely, the romance is way more evolved and devolved into this one. So I felt like this one actually moved faster than this one, but I may be on my own in that. This was a 4.12 and this was a 4.31. Next is a very popular duology from the Grishaverse by Leigh Bardugo, and that is Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. This is about this band of misfits. It's a found family trope. This band is assembled to go on a heist to rescue somebody. There is a secondary story with the Grisha that is going on in this and how they're being controlled by people, and there's a little bit of darkness there as well, but it is tied into the heist that they are going on, essentially. The person that they're looking for is tied into this secondary story as well. Very fast paced, I think, this book. I loved the found family in this, and just the Grishaverse in general. I love this duology, and I think you can read this one without reading Shadow and Bone. I would not recommend reading the King of Scars duology. I'm not going to talk about that one because I do think you need to read the Shadow and Bone trilogy before you read that, so I didn't want to count it with duologies, but this one I think you can read by itself because the characters are different. They are mentioned in the King of Scars duology, but you don't need to know the Shadow and Bone characters to understand these books. So, standalone duology, in my opinion, in the Grishaverse. Very unique world, very fun world. I miss it. I do plan on eventually rereading all of the, 7 books again, but probably not anytime soon because I have some other ones I want to reread. But these are highly loved books as well. This is the highest rated duology. I have it listed as number 5 out of 8, but 4.47, 4.58, highest rated on this list that I'm going to give you. Then we have the Letters of Enchantment duology, which is Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. This is more of like, I consider this more like a slightly cozier fantasy, whimsical fantasy. This is definitely heavier on the romance. This is between Iris and, oh my goodness, what is his name? Roman. And they are rivals at their local newspaper. There's only one full-time position and they are both vying for it. But because Iris's brother is at this war and nobody's been able to get a hold of him, she goes to the front lines to write. And she has been writing to him on this typewriter that she has and kind of just sliding the letters under her closet door because she has nowhere else to send them. And magically a letter is being sent back, and little does she know it's Roman. Roman knows it's her, she doesn't know it's Roman. And they kind of get to know each other a little bit through that. This one is heavier on the war and the world building. A lot of people didn't like that, and the ratings that I'll give you do show that, but I actually enjoyed Ruthless Vows, I think, more than Divine Rivals. I think there was just more meat to this one, and more of a plot. This one didn't really feel like it had as much of a plot as it was just like a romance, but it was really sweet. This is YA, so it is a very clean duology, I would consider. But this was a 4.17, and this was a 4.01. Coming in at number 3 on my list is also another duology that shocked me with how much I loved it, and that is These Violent Delights and Our Violent Ends by Chloe Gong. This is like the Secret of Shanghai or Secret Shanghai duology. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's essentially a Romeo and Juliet reimagining, retelling that takes place in 1920s Shanghai. And both of them are part of like rival gang families, and there is like a mystery magical element to this, I think, as well, that is really fun and makes the story progress more. This one was definitely heavier on the romance. This one you're building the world and understanding Roma and Juliet's background and what their history is together and where their families are and the feud between their families, and as well as figuring out this monster that is haunting the streets of Shanghai and taking out people from both sides of the rivalry. So, beautiful story. I don't particularly like Romeo and Juliet, so it did surprise me about how much I enjoyed these books, but I think that this one actually was, in my mind, a higher rated book. I really, really, really enjoyed Our Violent Ends, so definitely worth the read. I think it was very intimidating to me, but I'm upset with myself that I didn't just like jump in earlier. 3.82 and 4.29. So this one is rated considerably higher than this one. Next is another duology that took me by surprise. I saw everybody reading it about a year and a half ago, I'd say October of 2023, so I picked both of the books up because the second one came out that month, and that is the Shepherd's King duology, or One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. This is a gothic fantasy with a very unique magic system that revolves around tarot cards and using the power of the tarot cards to be able to manipulate other people as well as themselves, the people that have the tarot card. There are only so many cards, and there is a curse on the land that is tied into those cards as well, and we follow Elspeth and Raven. Yes, look at that. I remember that. And Elspeth has this like nightmare monster inside of her, very like Venom-esque. If you've ever seen or watched Venom, main character has this monster inside of him that he can kind of communicate and can kind of manifest itself. And that is how I viewed a nightmare, and that's how my brain took it. But it is part of the curse that she has, that she got when she was a child. And there is this mist upon the land that causes sickness, and anyone that is exposed to it is supposed to be killed. But she manages to be hidden from the king and everything, and has survived being killed because she has this disease. And there is a wonderful story, I think, between Elspeth and Raven as well. I definitely wouldn't consider it like the most romantic story, but I definitely think that there was a good amount of bonding and understanding that went between them. And I really, really enjoyed this. Cannot wait to reread this again. All of these duologies are something that I consider myself is a possibility and will more than likely be reread at some point in time. But really, really enjoyed this one. It was a tie, very close tie, I think, between this duology and the one I ranked number 1, because I want to say I gave both of these 5 stars. I'm not 100% sure, but I want to say that they were both like 4.5 or 5-star reads. If you like that gothic fantasy, like that spooky kind of, I mean, this was so atmospheric, and I think because I read it in October, it just felt that way as well, but I could really imagine this world and the atmosphere that everything occurred in. Highly recommend. 4.29, 4.42. And then, I don't think anybody will be surprised if you've been on this channel before what my number 1 duology is. The second book just came out and I read it the day it was in my hands, and that is the Heartless Hunter or Crimson Moth duology. So in America, we call it Heartless Hunter. In every other part of the world, it is the Crimson Moth. And then I also noticed that in America, this is Rebel Witch, but in every other country, it's the Rebel Witch. There's a the. This one doesn't have, there is no the in the title. I noticed that when I saw somebody else talking about it that was like in England. But Witch Hunter, probably one of the best enemies to lover romances I've ever read. Just the tension and the banter and the like actual underbelly of hatred that is between these characters, even though they have feelings for each other, and how they have to try to cope with those feelings because they know that they don't agree with the other one, is just, it was so well written. Like, I was just engrossed the entire time. You're following Rune and Gideon, and Rune is the Crimson Moth, and by night she is a socialite that gets information to allow the witches that are being hunted to be freed or to escape. And Gideon is our witch hunter. He is one of the best witch hunters in this area of the kingdom, and they both are kind of using each other in the first book to get information. He has his suspicions that she is the Crimson Moth, and she obviously knows that he's a witch hunter, so they're using each other, but there's also feelings that develop, and the hatred that still exists between them, like even in this book, because they don't want to have the feelings that they have for each other so strongly, and the like cat and mouse aspect of this one, and oh, it was just so good. So good. The ending of this one was a little bit of a cliffhanger. I think they tied into each other very well. I think there was a lot of like good callbacks in this one to stuff that happened here that made everything make sense and tied everything up pretty well together. But they were both 5-star reads for me. Very much enjoyed these books. Highly, highly recommend if you like Witch Hunter. And if you like enemies to lovers, read these. They are YA, so they are cleaner. I know there's a few people that have said they don't believe these should be YA. They should be like adult, maybe new adult. I don't think there was enough spice in these to consider them anything other than YA, but that is just my opinion. However, go into it, make your own. 4.19, 4.35. So those are the 8 duologies that I have read in the past year or two that I would highly recommend if you're looking for maybe a little bit longer of a fantasy story that's not just a standalone, but nothing like committing to Throne of Glass or ACOTAR, anything that's like more than 2-3 books. Maybe I'll do this again with some trilogies as I finish up some trilogies over the next few months. I'll talk about some of my favorite ones there, but let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know if you agree with me on where I've ranked these, or if you definitely are like, nope, Emily, you should put this one up higher. It is so much better. I'd love to know. Let me know if any are on your list if you haven't read them. And I think this was a pretty short one, but that's okay because we've had some long videos lately. But I thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far, and I hope to see you all in the next video.